I want to explain why people have been wrong about the Lumix S9 camera. It got quite a lot of hate and it caused a little bit of drama, to say the least, in the YouTube world recently. And honestly, I was a little bit confused about it myself. But my confusion had nothing to do with the specs and more to do with the price at first. But now it makes a lot more sense to me, and I just want to clear a few things up and say why people have been wrong about this camera and a little bit too quick to judge. Now, I do still believe that Lumix may have got two things wrong, but that's only if you're looking at it the wrong way. And there are also two cameras that we need to consider when we're thinking about the S9 before we make any snap judgments. And I'm going to explain why they're so important in a little bit. Before I get into it, I just want to say that I'm not telling you to buy this camera. It's not for everybody, I know that. I'm just telling you my thoughts, my opinions, and maybe with every camera, let's not judge too harshly. Shall we? When I first heard about the Lumix S9 before it was launched, I was under the impression that Lumix were marketing it to the people that make content using their phones and post on social media. But they want a step up in image quality without having to spend the big bucks on the more professional cameras. Because there's compromises both ways. If you use your phone, it's super quick, but you don't have the image quality. If you use a camera, there's more workflow steps involved. And the Lumix Lab app with real-time LUTs on the S9 cut down that workflow. And with this, you're also getting a more professional image quality, all in a tiny compact body, and you can use your full frame lenses with it as well. You can even add anamorphic lenses if you want to. Look at that beast. So I'm thinking, this sounds great, I want one, but it wouldn't be my main camera, so I wouldn't want to spend main camera money on it. I'm thinking maybe 800 or 900 sniffs. You know, I think that's reasonable for like a mini compact content creation camera that may not have all the specs as my more pro cameras. But then when I heard the price, I was very surprised because you can almost pick up a Lumix S5 Mark II for the same. And I honestly thought, well, who's going to buy this camera then? Because anyone who creates content for fun or just wants a little bit of a step up from their phone isn't going to want to pay that sort of money, I don't think, for the first proper camera. But the more serious people, they're either going to have something like a Lumix S5 Mark II anyway, or they're going to choose that over this because it's the similar price without all the limitations. But there lies the first problem. People have been comparing it to cameras such as the Lumix S5 Mark II and the Sony cameras, and when you do that, that's when you start looking for and spotting all the limitations in the S9. And you know, there's a few things that I'm not super keen on with this camera. It doesn't feel super comfortable to hold. The small rig grip looks really good, and I think that'll make it a little bit more comfortable to hold. A lack of dials. I like to have the shutter speed on the thumb wheel, and that's missing. Honestly, the buttons just feel a little bit plasticky and cheap to me, so I'm not, you know, this is really, I feel, a budget, affordable camera body. I'm just going to park that segment here a second and look at where I think Lumix may have gone a little bit wrong. With the real-time LUT function, I think Lumix wanted to bring out something that rivals the Fuji X100V. This camera got so popular and it was going for more money second-hand than it was new because you just couldn't get hold of them. The recipes and the reputation of Fuji's film emulations, along with how it kind of mimics a film camera functionality and the way you use it, meant that everybody wanted to get their hands on one. And this drove the price way up. If you don't know what recipes are, they're basically Fuji's version of a filter, like an Instagram filter, but it mimics like a real film type look. And you know, it's not perfect, it's close though, and it's very well done, and you can also add grain, which looks really authentic. If you want to know more about it, I did a full video of the pros and cons, which you can see up here. Lumix's real-time LUT is basically Lumix's answer to the recipes, and Lumix has also added a grain feature, which I really like. Now, I need to have a little bit more of a play around with it to dial in the amount of grain that I like. I think there's some improvements to be done, but that's for another video. And some might say, well, if Fuji are charging 1,500 quid, why can't Lumix charge 1,500 quid for this? And my answer is, the S9 doesn't have the reputation of what the Fuji does. It's just simple as that. So you can't charge that much for it. There was a few renditions of the X100 series before it got to the Mark V, whereas this is the first one. There are also a bunch of other things that make the Fuji so popular that the S9 doesn't have. For example, it's got a leaf shutter, built-in ND filters, which is one of my favourite things ever. It's got a flash. However, this is the point in the video where we flip all of that on its head, because when you look at the S9, it's got so much more than the Fuji X100V, and it does a lot of that much better than the X100V. The image stabilization. Lumix cameras have the best image stabilization. Autofocus. You can change lenses. The video quality is stellar, in my opinion. It's the same sensor as the S5 Mark II. Full frame, films in open gate. You can put LUTs in there. Anamorphic lenses, as I mentioned earlier, and so much more that we love about Lumix cameras. And you just don't get that on the Fuji. This kind of does everything in a way, and more. This kind of is a hybrid camera in my eyes. It's very similar size to the Fujifilm. Looks great. I do like this black version. I'd like to see a version with the silver bit on the top, but we're getting so much in this tiny camera, we can't forget that. With all that in mind, maybe this camera is perfectly priced. If you want a small compact camera with professional image quality, flexibility and ease of use, where else can you get that? The Sony a7C II is £2,000, so it's quite a bit extra up from this, and it's nowhere near the same image quality. And I think everyone wants something for nothing now, and you've got to remember that the technology and the ingenuity and the design that have gone into building things like this is worth every penny. We take that for granted sometimes. So did Lumix get it wrong with the marketing, or did the people who are talking about it get it wrong? It's like when the Canon R5 camera came out, it was marketed as a camera that could film in 8K. So loads of people bought it to do video with, but actually it should have been marketed as a photography camera first that can film a little bit of 8K in short bursts. Then there wouldn't have been a monsoon of overheating videos that almost killed Canon. That's what I don't want to see for Lumix, because they are on their way up. They're making waves lately. I want to see them keep going. So I think as long as we all make sure that we're thinking about things properly when we're doing our reviews and talking about cameras, we need to think about what we're actually getting in these awesome things. I still think it could have been priced a little less for their first one and let the reputation of it speak for itself, which would in turn drive the price up. The more people can afford one of these, the more people are going to have them, the more people are going to talk about them, and the more popular they'll become. And let that reputation build naturally. But look, I know nothing about the camera manufacturing world or business world. I don't know what I'm talking about. So Lumix, keep doing what you're doing. Sorry. Let me know in the comments, who do you think this camera is for? What do you think to it? Love to know your thoughts. If you want to know more about the Fuji X100V, there's a video up here. That's all from me for now. And yeah, in the meantime, have a great week and I'll see you in the next one.